Oh my goodness.
Okay, we're gonna start the meeting, call the meeting order. Start with a flag salute. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
Okay, any discussion on the agenda? All those in favor of approving the agenda as announced, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Agenda approves. No one has signed in to speak on the agenda items. Is there any public comment on tonight's agenda?
Everybody looks at me.
Awesome. All right, we'll move on to board member comments. We'll start to the right with, yeah.
I always have a lot going on, so yeah, that's about it. But I'm gonna go ahead and pass it on because we have a full night.
Yes, we do.
Okay, well, I did attend an Eagle Scout badge award ceremony for Spencer that was probably had 125 people there. It was amazing. And I've never been to one, so that was pretty impressive. And Superintendent Rosenbach and myself went down to Tahuya Community Club to just let them have an update on what's going on in our schools and all the great programs that we've initiated and all the super kids that we have in our school district. And I also went to the Hawkins Middle School Student Forum, which was very interesting. They were very articulate, well prepared. They had good questions, and they have more questions, so we'll probably do that again. That's all I have.
All right, John?
I was at I showed up for one round table, but I was an hour late, so I had my time wrong. I made the other one, and it was a very productive thing. I think that's what I did.
Very little to report. It's been very busy where I work because of all things horses, but I won't get into the details. In any case, I could not go to Spencer's thing because of, well, not horses, but things related to the horses. In any case, but I'm also, of course, doing the Builders Club, and I've been getting information, and thank you, Ashley, new rules and regulations and stuff like that that are just, well, it makes things just way more paperwork than before.
Awesome. Okay. Oath of office tonight for Aaliyah Christensen, our new student board member.
All right.
Superintendent's doing that.
Okay, so raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Aaliyah Christensen, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington, and that I will faithfully and impartially perform and discharge the duties of the office of student board member, North Mason School District Board of Directors, according to the law and the best of my abilities. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And then I think our existing previous board members want to shake your hand.
Warm up my hands.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right, welcome. Look forward to it.
Glad to have you aboard.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Now that you are an official seated student board member, I'll give you the first opportunity to, if you have any comments or anything that you'd like to report to the full board.
I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity. This is really awesome, and I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. Morgan.
So we're planning to flock Lakeland. So if you guys aren't aware, like if you live in Lakeland, we go out and we sell you insurance that prevents a flock of flamingos to land in your yard. If you don't have insurance, they might end up there. It's a fundraiser for the class of 2020. You can opt to not pay, and we'll move them for free. or you can make a donation to the class of 2020, and you can pick the next house that the flamingos land at. We're doing the lakeside of Lakeland. We're selling insurance January 17th through the 20th, and then we're flocking the 20th through the 31st on the lakeside of Lakeland, and then we'll do Homestead later in the year. We just started planning our mock car crash, and we're planning a winter dance on February 1st, and it will be a neon themed dance.
Ooh.
Cool.
All right.
Do you do the flocking at night when nobody sees you, or do you during the day while everybody's watching?
Whenever we sell insurance during the day, so we try to catch people like when they get off work and after school. And then we have done it before where we go in the middle of the night and place it, like we'll go to like teachers' houses, and we'll go place them in the yards. They'll wake up to flamingos in the morning. But we usually try to do it like right after school.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
So where do you get all these trained flamingos?
Yeah.
That's the secret.
Good answer.
All right. Consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Any discussion on the consent agenda this evening? I did have one question. It was regards to the West Sound Tech interlocal agreement, interdistrict agreement. Way into it, it's kind of buried in there, but it talks about additional costs beyond the approved budget amount being prorated among consortium districts.
So that's been a part of the language of the contract since prior to when I arrived here. Should there be an unexpected cost like a leak in the roof, for example, we would as a board of directors of West Sound Tech, all of the superintendents that sit on that, we would come to some agreement and then bring it back to our boards for approval for whatever additional costs we might have.
Has there been, is there like a trend, or has this happened
We
before?
haven't
We've had
done
to
it
do
since I've been here.
Okay.
So, no, we haven't had to do it, and now with West Sound Tech has received the initial dollars to do some major additional building and remodeling. So they're in the first phase of that with state funds, because they get funded for that a little bit differently than schools do, the skills centers. So hopefully we'll get all of that done before there's any major issues. But it's a very old building, older than really any of ours anymore. So there's always something that might pop up.
Any other comments for the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Consent agenda passes. Number 3 on the list tonight is a Belfair Elementary presentation. And it looks like Mr. Connell will be handling that duty.
Come on up, guys. We're going to stand right over here on this side so they can all see us. And then one, all the way across this way. And then in front of here is right there. And this is on, right?
I think so. I can hear it.
Check, check. Oh.
You can
Check,
scratch
check.
it.
No,
No,
don't worry about it. Stop.
I think you're okay.
Okay,
yeah.
we're good. All right, so I'm Don Connell. I'm a music teacher at Belfair Elementary. I've been there for 19 years. And we brought our choir, or some members of our choir, here today to help out with a little presentation about what we do for music at our schools. And both Morgan and Aaliyah were former students there, and they're awesome. And so I'm going to introduce Emma first, and she's going to come up here and speak.
Hi, my name is Emma. Did you know that Belfair Elementary students all receive music instructions once or twice a week? Yes, that's right. All students in grade K through 5 go to music class with Miss Connell. Once at music, they move, sing, and play instruments for 40 minutes. Every class includes many hands-on music activities. Music is lots of fun.
Hi, I am Elizabeth. Did you also know that our music students put on a concert throughout the year? This year, the first grade program is in December. The 4th and 5th graders, hey, that's us. March, and the 2nd and 3rd graders perform in May.
Hi, we're Nadira and Hannah. Did you know that at Belfair Elementary we have a special performance group group called the Mount Masters. This group has been performing around the community for the last 19 years. I and another 23 other 4th and 5th grade students are proud to be a part of the group this year. We play marimba instruments.
Sorry.
Hi, impressive.
Marimba instruments that are similar to instruments found in Mexico and Central America. Here is a small video clip of the group last year.
Wow. Very cool.
My son was in that one.
Hi, my name is Clara. Did you know that Belfair Elementary Choir has the privilege of performing the national anthem at the Tacoma Rainiers baseball game for the last 2 years? This year, I and 54 other members will be singing at the Rainiers baseball game in April. Tonight, we did not bring all 55. We hope you enjoy the performance of the song we sang last week for Veterans Day called You Are Our Heroes.
Step forward just a little bit right there, Stella.
What can you say to a hero? Someone who's always there. What can you say to a hero? To someone who lives life to care. We can say thank you. Oh, we can say thank you, thank you. We know God blesses you. You're all
Awesome. Thank you very much. We
Thank
enjoyed
you.
our
Thank
presentation
you. Awesome.
tonight. Okay, guys, we're gonna file right up.
It's a very sweet sound.
And Ashley, you get to follow that.
I have myself composed. Those types of things always get to me, being a veteran myself.
You
so.
can do it in song if
I
you'd
know.
like.
No,
Yeah.
no thanks. Okay, so we're starting with levy. Okay, so I handed out 2 other documents regarding the levy, and then there was a third included with the actual packet, and then you guys have the resolution as well. So first, in general, the resolution that you guys see before you, it's to put out basically a stagnant property value levy. So basically this just means over the course of a 4-year period, we wouldn't be increasing the amount levied based upon increased property value, so it's stagnant, okay? Of the amount of $5,758,086. This equates to, in the year 2020, based upon estimated property values from Mason County, a $2.36 per thousand levy rate for the EP&O levy. Okay, so now I'm going to delve into more of the details.
Wait a minute, let me just throw a few things in
Okay.
there. So, she said it was a stagnant rate, and you'll remember last time when we did our 4-year levy, we were very deliberate in choosing to keep the levy amount the same year to year, so that our voters could count on that total amount. That was a deliberate choice by our board, and that is the same thing we would be doing again. I also want to point out that the $236 per thousand rate is the same rate that we asked for and got approved in
The
4
last
years
two-
ago, in the last
The last
two
two
levies.
levies have been at the 236 per thousand rate.
So we would be asking for a 4-year 236, 236, 236, 236.
Yes. Well,
Not
no,
necessarily.
not necessarily. It's
So, yeah.
5,700,000 4
So-
years in a row, but if property values go up, then that 236 would go down. The total dollar
Exactly.
amount would stay the same, but the amount each of our property owners would be charged would change based on the value of the property.
So in order to explain that process right there, because it gets extremely complex, I did up the other page, okay? So if you guys can refer to the little Word document, it says stagnant property value example. And Denise, I put these copies up there, it's not in the board packet. Okay, so the stagnant property value example, so if you take a home valued at $250,000, with our levy that we would be going for in 2020 at the 5.7 million amount, if you look at 2020 through 2024, and you put, let's just say, a 5% inflator on property values, which is low for this area, okay, for what we've been seeing as far as the trends go and where we expect the trends to go here in the future. You put a 5% inflator across everything on the property values. By 2024, that $2.36 levy is actually $1.94. So the taxes then from 2020 on an individual basis at that 236 rate, in 2020 it would be $590. By 2024 it would be $485.39. So that's why it's stagnant, because we aren't levying at an increased property value each year. We're sticking with the 2020 valuation and applying it across all 4 years, regardless of what the property value does in the 4th year.
So
It-
question
go
on,
ahead.
just to clarify the number on your stagnant property value example, when it had the taxes assessed line, which is the 2020 to 2024, is that rate being applied to the new value each year that you've calculated, or is that rate being applied to the $250,000?
The 250, it shows what the actual 250,000 is.
Okay, that's an
Yep.
important thing to know.
Yep, exactly. So, and this is what we saw happen to our last levy. Like right now, it's like $1.99 and some change. They rounded up to $2 is what they're technically, what I will be certifying here before the end of this month. But, so we're certifying right at the $2 range for a levy that originally 4 years ago was actually $2.36, because it was stagnant, because it wasn't built to increase with increased property values, it decreased. And so we would see the same with this levy over the course of 4 years. As property values increase, the amount per thousand would then decrease. And then what I turned around and did is I talked to our surrounding school districts this morning, regarding what they have levied here recently, what their plans are as far as what they're levying, and where they're currently at for all levies. So this is not just their EP&O levy, which is what our resolution is for, but this includes their debt service levies, their capital projects levies, their tech levies, and any bond payments that they have out there, okay? So the total levy rate for everything that they're currently levying for 2020 is shown there on the right-hand side of the page. I sorted it smallest to largest at this point. One of the things that is key to note here is the regionalization factor. One of the things that I was seeing when I was making the calls and getting this information is the districts that had higher regionalization factors had lower local levies, okay, because they're receiving more funding from the state. Our Mason County districts that receive 0, they had the highest levy rates, but they're collecting the least amount from the state. Peninsula School District, that one was a tad bit difficult. They're currently going out for an EP&O levy at $1.50 per thousand, which is the old cap, okay? But they just passed a $199
million bond.
Yes, which equates to $2.80 some odd cents per thousand that they're already assessing to their taxpayers to pay that bond. So hence the reason why they're staying at $1.50 for their EP&O levy. The other districts, like Central, for example, they're currently at $1.50 for their EP&O levy, but they went out for levy when there was still the $1.50 cap, and they had to roll back and levy only at $1.50. When I talked to the finance director out there, they stated that because they had originally gone out for that 4-year levy at the $1.50 rate, they didn't feel it was fair to their community to go out and do what the state is considering a piggyback levy on that $1.50. They actually granted those districts who approved levies within the last year when we were capped at $1.50. They approved them the ability to go out and re-levy for EP&O to increase that $1.50 to $2.50 if they wanted. Like Central has decided not to do that because they already made a promise to their community to only do the $1.50, and as you can see with everything else that they have, they're already at $2.98. Bremerton School District is currently in the process of running a February 2020 levy as well. They have gone about it in a different way as well. They are doing their EP&O levy only at $1.50 per thousand, but they've decided to run a capital levy for $1.67. And so that capital levy is replacing a capital, tech, and bond that's expiring this year. So they decided to wrap them all up into a capital levy, keep an EP&O levy at $1.50, up everything else, and do $1.67 for it all. So as I was talking,
that total is $317.
Yeah, so Bremerton's at $315. Yeah, South Kitsap currently is at $316. North Kitsap, I talked to the finance director at North Kitsap. They're at the lowest at $243. And when I was talking to him, he stated that if he had a magic 8 ball and could go back in the future, he personally, for his district, would not have done a stagnant levy, because that's why they're sitting at $243 right now. They decided to keep it the same for the 4 years. Their property values went way up, and so what they're collecting now has gone way down. And so technically they're only collecting $2.43 per thousand at this point, and they're stuck with that until for at least another 2 years. So that's what it was looking at, or what I was looking at when I was talking to the other districts to sort of determine what was going on. A majority of the Kitsap County districts, they were at $1.50 for their EP&O because they had run the levies when the cap was $1.50. The other districts that did have the capacity to go up to $2.50, they're currently sitting at $2.50, but they had to be rolled back to $2.50. So there's a culmination of multiple factors here at play.
Is our $2.83 That includes the bond and the levy?
That would be for the year 2020 because we're rolling back on the bond for 2020.
Okay.
So then what happens on the other document that is in the board packet, so when we're looking at this one, technically our amount for 2020, if we were not to have rolled back our debt service, it would have been 84 cents per thousand for just the debt service side. What we're doing now is we're rolling back that 36 cents. It brings our amount levied for the debt service fund down to 48 cents. Now in subsequent years, it is possible for us to do some type of rollback, but I can't tell you what that would be right now. It would be based upon the amount of property taxes collected in 2020, so I know what to roll back for 2021. So let's say there was no rollback whatsoever, just assuming worst case, that's where you see the 82 cents, 81, 79 cents, 77. So I took our payments in those subsequent years that we need to make on the bond, and I took the per thousand, calculated that out, and then added it into what our collection would be at that time. So, and this paper is assuming only a 1% property inflator each year. So.
And then also, it's very possible that the board will be considering a refinance on our bond, which would bring the cost to our taxpayers down in the next few months.
Yeah, we have a meeting on the 26th to discuss that. So the debt service side, there's a lot of things at play right there, and so trying to forecast out what exactly it would be in the future is hard to do so. We earn interest, and we also get those state forest dollars that go into that fund that can also be used to help pay down the bond if that was the decision made to do so. So we have that at play there. If, assuming property values did not increase very much at all, that's that total amount levied per year on this document that looks like this. Worst case scenario, what we would be looking at is 283 in 2020, then it would go to 318, 314, 310, 309 by 2024. So, and that's assuming property values increase at 1% a year. So, that's that information. Do you guys have any questions? It's, I know there's a lot going on here with calculations and everything.
Why could anyone object to this?
Why would anyone object to
Yeah.
that? So here, the big reason why we would hear objections is because of information that's been passed on from the state that school districts are currently fully funded. Therefore, why would we need to go to our community and levy the community if we're being fully funded? Unfortunately, the funding model that's being used is so outdated that it's not actually fully funding what our needs are here. On top of that, there's inequities that have been posed by giving other districts higher regionalization amounts, and district like North Mason, only 6%, that causes inequities when it comes to just being able to pay the bills and keep the lights on. Our utilities are still the same cost as what they're paying there, but we get less money to pay them.
So I would begin by saying things are not as even as they seem.
No, they're
No,
not.
and
Oh, go ahead.
I think it's really important to look at some very specific examples.
Yeah.
For example, if we look at custodial services, that, you know, when the state fully funds a district, they're funding what they developed in the 1970s called the prototypical funding model, based on what they determined at that time was the amount of staff you needed to serve at 400 kids per building school, basically, and at different grade levels. So according to that model, for the whole district, we need 6 or 7 custodians
For all of our buildings.
You know, we wouldn't be able to empty the garbages in the classroom and clean the toilets every night if we only had 6 custodians for the whole district.
Well,
So
and also IT funding is based
exactly,
off 1970s.
Yep.
IT, we wouldn't even have one whole employee in that department. So that it's a fallacy for them to tell everyone that we fully funded with the McCleary fix. We funded more than they had funded in the past, but they didn't pay for all the things that need to happen for kids in schools. So they left us still needing to ask our communities for more money through a levy.
Well, and then, for example, transportation. So by law, by we are only required to transport students with an IEP, special needs students, okay? So all of the other funding, or all of the other transportation we do, to from transportation, technically that's not considered a requirement. So we have a very diverse boundary for a school district compared to some of our other areas, as far as our square mileage goes. Our transportation costs are very staggering when you look at other districts where they have like a 5-mile square radius and they can transport all their students with half the fleet that we need to transport ours. So we see higher transportation costs, which still are not fully funded. And we have, because of our diverse population, last year alone we spent $80,000 transporting students who were considered homeless or foster students. And this isn't money that we get funded for.
So what she's talking about, if you don't understand, is under McKinney-Vento, the federal law protecting homeless students and foster kids. If their place where they're staying or living changes, they get to stay at the school where they started. And so then it's our job to go get them, whether they're now living in Bremerton or Shelton or Olympia, and bring them to school. And so it's to maintain some normalcy in kids' lives, and it's not a bad idea, but it is a very expensive idea that the state wrote a law for as far as how we do transportation, but again didn't fund that piece. So.
This sounds to me very much like the things we were been arguing before the legislature for the last several years about why we come out. I mean, the bus one's kind of our classic poster child. There are a number of things where we are not, where the needs of our district are not adequately figured in by the state formula. And as a result of that, we come up short, hence our asking you for this minimal.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm beginning to integrate some of the things we've been doing in the last several years with the proposition before us.
And another big thing that we've seen this year, and that's having a really big impact on a school district operation statewide, has been the increase to minimum wage. The state minimum wage increases again in January. Well, what we've seen with the increase is everything, all of our costs are obviously increasing. So utilities, we've gotten hit pretty hard with increased utility costs. This last year, normally you can budget about 3% for an increased utility from one year to the next. This year we averaged 8 to 10% across the board. We're talking not only electricity, but recycling, garbage, everything. So when you're dealing with a large chunk of your money that goes just to keep the lights on and do recycling and trash and everything, and you're seeing an 8 to 10% increase from one year to the next, that's a lot to absorb here when we have so many other costs. So there's been quite a few things, along with other state mandated, unfunded mandates that we've been having to absorb as well.
And employee benefits, that impacted as well?
That is a huge impact. Now, what I can say at a district level, we were really, really, really good about just going through absolutely everything as far as employee hours and how can we, stack positions to ensure that, the money going out for the benefits isn't over the top and everything, and trying to cut the costs where we can. But when we're looking at $1,000 a month per employee and they're only funding what's in that prototypical model, the costs are very high.
You asked earlier what questions we would have. I think I understand the process of, 283, 216, all that sort of stuff pretty well. And so I'm not asking for an answer, I just want to present something that you already know, and I think we all do as well. When I talk to community members who are asking me about the levy stuff, which isn't very often because they don't ask me that often, but when I do, most often they don't get how this works. I think I understand how it works. Property taxes go up, but it may not go up for you. They may go up, or your property valuations go up for some, not for others. And that makes it so much more complex than being able to say it as simply as you did here. And that's the hard part, trying to get that message to the people who are asking about that, because it seems like no matter how much I try, and I think I understand it really well, they don't get it. it's too complex. They get stuck on, well, if my evaluation goes up, damn that assessor and all that sort of stuff, then I'm gonna be, and anyway, so I'm just throwing that out at you. You know this already,
Yeah.
but that's the conversation I mostly have with anybody in our public.
Yeah.
Again, a few people a year, but still, that's what I'm hearing and getting, and it's very difficult to get people to understand how that works.
Yeah.
Because they just don't get it. It's difficult math.
Exactly. Well, and I actually called and talked to an individual over at the county assessor's office because when I got our property valuation, it had increased much more than what we had anticipated. And then you start hearing everybody talk about getting their property valuations in, and you started hearing about these large increases. And so when I had called them and they explained to me how they went about going and doing the property valuations this year, there were sections that, you know, people from the assessor's office actually went out and looked at the place and did the valuation and sent it in. There were other sections, neighborhoods, areas, that they just put formulas against. And so we have large sections in our community that received 23% valuations if they were near or on water. So they have received 23% increases to their property valuation. So when we're looking at everything that these documents have are based on, it's all based off this assumption that, you know, the assessor sends out, this is going to be your property valuation. Now, community members have until the 21st of this month, I believe it is, to appeal their property valuations. So that's also another thing at play right now. So we're approving based upon what we feel is this higher property valuation. Those appeals that go in and get approved will lower the overall valuation, and then we would be collecting.
That's kind of a big assumption on if any of that moves. I mean, that's a
I've
a
talked
crapshoot.
it is, and I've talked to realtors, and my conversations with the realtors based upon the information they've been receiving from the community as far as appeals go, is where I'm getting that information on. It's not just technically a what if. But
No,
yeah.
right. But even then, I mean, it still goes through the Board of Equalization, and it's.
Yep.
I
So,
mean-
yeah, and I try to forecast for any of these possibilities because this is, when we do this, obviously we're setting something in stone for 4 years, and so we want to take all of these items into account when we're doing it. So making the calls, asking the questions, getting the information doesn't hurt, and then just putting all the pieces in play and seeing where we land at that, so.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Well, I don't have a question, but I do, I am concerned that it is what you call a stagnant amount, and it's not gonna change
Yeah.
for us, to be able to collect a particular amount, exactly the same amount, every year for 4 years, because everything goes up, and we all know that. And I guess, when I first got this information, I thought, well, geez, 236, why don't we just knock a dime off, and 226 would maybe be more palatable to our community. And I'm always thinking from that viewpoint is, what is the community going to accept, and how will they understand how we use all of this money? When we went down to the Tahuya Community Club, Dana gave a very clear picture of where we're spending our money, and it was well received. And when I, at the end, sort of threw out the fact that we really do need to go back for another levy, it expires next year, they were very receptive. And that wasn't even talking about dollars or cents or anything, but they got it based on the programs that we're trying to give our students, and the, I guess, the enriched programs as well, to give them a leg up.
Exactly.
I mean, we need to do that. So, you know, as you gave your presentation, as I look at this, I'm not as inclined to say let's knock a dime off, because it's going to remain the same for 4 years, and we may find during that time that we will have to really pinch pennies if the prices go up on everything.
For that same reason, I know we don't have a motion yet on that resolution, but I won't support that resolution.
Okay.
Having it stagnated, in my opinion, is sort of short-sighted in the fact that come 2024, you now have to, just to get back to where we are, is a 42-cent raise, as opposed to if we are looking at what's predicted, perhaps just a 5-cent raise.
Well, and you can change the resolution up until you vote for it. So we can handwrite on
Okay.
here
That's
anything
good.
else we want to do.
I mean,
And
if
but
the other
we are
board
kind of in a
members,
bind if we're gonna get on the February ballot. We do have to approve
needs to
a
happen
resolution tonight, but whether it has to be these amounts or not is up to you all.
well, with that, I'm gonna go ahead and do a little liberty as being the chair and ask for, we do have a recommendation for a action tonight for a resolution. Just don't go far.
I'm just gonna go
Okay.
right. Okay.
Can I just interrupt real quick? Would it be that difficult to leave it at 236 for all of these extended years out to 2024? And let us know what those numbers would be that we would be collecting?
No, it's not difficult at all. I just need to go get my laptop, that's it. It's all already in an
Would that be
Excel form.
acceptable?
Yeah, but what I would like to do is open up the motion. That way we can actually discuss
Okay.
having a resolution and then come to some sort of decision.
Well,
Or come to a decision.
I move that we approve this resolution with the amendment of the numbers in it. Does that make sense?
Why don't we just approve the motion and then debate it?
Okay.
Yeah. So we have a motion.
Approval will be with the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we'll have discussion on this. So currently, what the resolution 16-G-19 is before us, a resolution of the Board of Directors of North Mason School District Number 403, Mason Kitsap Counties, Washington, providing for the submission to the qualified electors of the district at a special election to be held therein on February 11, 2020, of the proposition of whether excess taxes should be levied of $5,758,086.00 in 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. Said excess taxes to pay part of the educational support and operations support of the district. With that, let's have some discussion about this, because it's huge.
So that's Laura's motion or what?
That's Laura's motion. Me personally, I would be inclined to vote no on the stagnated levy, because in just looking at the flow analytics with regards to possible enrollment going up 10% in that same time frame, I don't think it leaves us wiggle room. And I think with having, if you think out long-term with those rates and how they decline at a stagnated levy, when 24 comes around, we're having to put this out to go to renew in 2025. Depending on what state actions happen to that time, maybe we are blessed with a higher regionalization level, but there's so many unknowns, especially with the, in my opinion, the ramifications of McCleary, that I think having that set amount dropping as much as it does, and then coming back to the voters with potentially a very large increase, to me it's not that long-term thinking. If we are to take a set rate saying 236, this is good for us, and it provides funding for long-term projects that extend beyond the levy. And then in 4 years, and we would like to renew that, I think 5 cents is a lot more, I could stomach that sort of increase a lot more than 42 cents. I'm really looking into it. I mean, that's a big jump in your collection amount.
Well, and I hadn't seen this little graph here before it was put in front of us, and I had no idea that it would reduce that amount in 4 years' time, all the way down to $1.94. And I feel like if we leave it at 236 per year, our community can count on 236. This is what I agreed to pay. I will pay this, rather than, oh, it's going down, it's going down, it's going down, and then we have to come back in 2024 when our levy is expiring and say there's no way that we can run the school district at that rate.
Right.
So.
And then they're like, well, what did you guys do wrong?
Yeah. So I feel like it would be more prudent to, rather than having the same amount collected for 4 years, because I don't know about you guys, but nothing in my house has remained the same in 4 years in terms of financial burden.
Buying power.
Yeah. So I think if that is a graduated rate We are accounting for all of those other issues that come up in the school district that require more money. We know that we're going to have to pour more money into technology. We'd like to put a computer in every kid's hand to be able to take home. We have to find out how we're going to be able to do that with the current budget. There's not a lot of room. So this would give us more room, and it would also give our students more learning power in their own hands. So I don't know. That's just my thought.
I'm in agreement with some sort of a graduated amount. I'm also seeing, our projections for enrollment that's steep going up, and that means that these dollars are not going to cut it. Even if they cut it now, they're not going to cut it next year because of the enrollment increases that we're seeing. And that doesn't mean we're getting more because of more kids. We're getting more of the McCleary stuff. That's all the basic student thing, but all the extra stuff we're not getting it for. So is it possible to, and I'm just throwing this out for thinking purposes, we have it saying 5.75 million for each of the 4 years. Can we say 5.75 million for this year, 6 million for next year, 6.2 and 6.4?
Yes.
Those are just wild guesses here.
Yeah, you can set
Okay,
numbers like that or
Right.
percentage increases.
My fear with doing that, Art, is now we also have the caps of the levy rates that we can do and
Yeah.
what that does. So if we say we want to do 6.4 and for whatever reason,
I don't think we'll get close to those caps.
We're too far away.
but if something happens, what if we hit recession and it pings us to the top? That's why if we stay with a specific rate, like what you're saying, whether we allow it to just go down and do the 1% tax.
Whatever the rate will drive
Right.
for us.
I would rather stick with a rate rather
So
than a
like
dollar
saying
amount.
236 and 240 and 250 or something?
No, I'm
No,
saying
just
236.
236 all the way through 2024.
Which is going to give us the same as 5.75
Which
million.
Ashley would have to kind of project
Yeah.
what the property value changes would be for each of those years times the 236, which would give us the $1 million amount, because the amount that actually goes on the ballot that is required is that total dollar amount. And so, like, for example, the calculations that are in the board report that she ran as of for 2021, based on these projections, if we were at the maximum of 250 per thousand that is allowed to districts our size, then the collection would be almost 6.1 million. So it would depend, but right now, unless the legislature does something different, we can't go over that 250 per thousand of assessed valuation. But the total assessed valuation for the district could change if more houses or businesses are built and there is more value in the district.
If there is a recession, values tank. All that happens is in November when I certify our levy, I roll it back. Okay, so worst case scenario, if something were to happen, we have to stay at our 250 cap. So if the values increase or the values decrease, so our point per thousand then increases, I roll back with the county and we only collect at that 250 mark, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's that bank capacity.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So, and I can make any changes. I've already put this all into Excel. The only items that I would need is what you want the inflationary factor to be for property values.
What did you use already?
I used two different ones. I used one at 1%, I used one at 5%. I have some districts stating that they are going to be using 10%. It's completely up to...
What's a safe number?
I wouldn't feel comfortable going more than 5, just because I feel 5 is, it's conservative without being overly conservative. I do think property values from year to year are likely to increase probably more than 5%. I don't think we'll be seeing a consistent 10% every year though, but if you do 5% over the course of the 4 years, and you're saying 20% between now and the end of 4 years from now, I feel that's consistent and conservative.
And I see that as, as more people are moving into the area, that just expands that pool of where we're driving from. That's what drives down
That
the
rate.
the 236 rate, so that, we would see 194, whatever it is that was projected. And that means that there's more room. And I'm seeing that we're gonna have that growth.
Mhm.
Some sort of, I can't predict the percentage. So I like the percentage idea, and graduated it maybe each year or however that works, but I just don't see, a recession coming in. Well, nobody has the crystal ball.
Right.
But I see we're get recession regardless. People are gonna be coming in this area in the next 4 years.
Well,
And that's going to expand the pool in any case, and that, trying to build something in like a graduated thing is going to help accommodate that for us better.
I think having a consistent, steady rate is best for public and best for us.
I do too. So what do you guys think about, if you look at 2021 here, the rate is at $2.25 to bring us 5,758,000. If we were to agree that 225 consistently through the end of the levy, and she could figure out what that would bring us, that 225 is a little bit of a break for the taxpayers.
On this spreadsheet, you guys, the inflationary factor is 1%.
Okay.
It's what, how?
1%.
1%.
Which is extremely low, but this one wasn't, this one was for stagnant. This wasn't one to show increased valuations, because this district historically has gone with stagnant, which is why I wrote it as a stagnant resolution. So this would be the first time that we've taken a different approach to doing this. So this one was, that paper right there is stagnant. So I can put an inflationary factor of 5, print it off so you can see what those numbers would look like. Or any other
I
inflationary
think
factor.
my only concern with that, Laura, is I think if we, even splitting the difference, saying 230, I think it allows us a little bit of capacity to make some long-term investments into some, whether it's curriculum or some sort of operational, that will go beyond this levy rate now. It provides that excess. Yeah, it's more than we absolutely possibly need to run the district, but like we said, we can allow for some IT curriculum replacements at 226, but if we go just a little bit higher, maybe there's something down the road, that an unforeseen thing that we can, this is something that will positively affect student outcomes, that will go beyond 2024, and I think it just gives us that little bit of breathing room to do that.
Yeah, I think the important thing is to, with respect to, we're custodians, and our job is, as best we humanly can, to see really, as best we really can, where things are going. And just these last several years having, been one, we've all been in on this, going to the legislature, we kind of get a feel for where the legislature is short in funding and where our needs are, in part, where we're shortchanged is stagnant. The bus thing, you could predict it's the bus thing. And there's some other, and the route, and then there are other things like that show up year after year, plus the unforeseen factors, plus the idea that I think we have a commitment to moving this district forward. And if we could have something that, as Craig was saying, gives us that possibility of an edge, taking advantage of an opportunity and not just, breaking even or whatever, enough that is so that we can be prudently dynamic. Some way in which we're prudent, but in our idea of prudence, we are equipped to take advantage of what is needed for our students, and that oftentimes means more than we have guessed.
Conservative budgeting has led us to, this is legitimately a good problem to have. We can operate without being, you look at some of our neighbors at 437, 414 per thousand. Even going to where we're at today, the 236, or what was previously authorized, we're still with our neighbors. We're still right there with our neighbors, and we have less
regionalization.
So I just, I think that we've done well with, because the three of you, four of you, I've only been on the board a little bit, but done well to put us at this point where we can still say, we're well below the rate, we're still at best average rate, and we're now able to make some investments in different programs that beforehand we had to defer, or we chose not to, just to ensure that, you know, we could operate, nothing fancy.
I think that we can make a very reasonable case on this basis, in the basis of what I heard, translating it into, oh, this pitch sounds very, you know, this approach sounds very familiar to me, because we've been asking for certain kinds of funding for a long time. Well, guess what? We didn't get it all, and we have to figure that in. And so I think that if we can arrive at a figure that is prudent, in line with our neighbors, even on the low end of alignment with our neighbors, and has a sharp eye out for what this school district needs to stay on top. We've moved ahead in these last several years, and I think expenses for curricula, technology, et cetera, these things are really important to run a first-class school these days. So if we could come in with a figure that's conservative but opportunistic in the best sense of the term, I think that's something we could support.
Ashley's refining some numbers for you on some of the things you've talked about, and we'll have those in just a second.
Okay.
Right, I'm hearing from all of us, except Leanne hasn't said anything.
Yeah, I was
You're
gonna
not
say,
giving
just
us
ask
any,
Leanna to make a-
you're not making any bad noises or.
No, you guys
faces.
never stop talking, I guess.
And what I'm hearing is nobody's opposed to the general idea of trying to figure out something that's maybe graduated in some fashion. So it's really a matter of how we're gonna figure out the graduation. I'm not gonna get hung up on whether it's 236 or if it's 7 million or whatever. I wanna see something happen, and I'll go along with whatever we come up with.
I like the 236. I think that's reasonable. And I think what's important is that we communicate to the fullest the reasons why that we've chosen this, and communicating with the community, so it's not just like, hey, we just chose 236 because we did. You know, it's just like, this is why, and over educating our community before it comes, so it's not just on a pamphlet that they read a paragraph and go, whatever, and the people that don't pay attention and go, what do I do? You know, who's voting this? You know, what am I going to do with this? I want people to know why they're voting for it. So, and I want us to shove it in their face and tell them why they're voting for it and why it's good. A lot, you know, before it even comes there. So whatever we choose, and like I said, the 236, I'm good there. But I think we should really get it out
Well,
there.
and thank you for that. And I think too that having the graduated amount gives us potential that we didn't have before. For instance, I'd love to see foreign language K-12. There are a lot of really good things that we could do if we had the funding capacity to do it. I'd also like to see performing arts in the elementary school, but that's just one other thing.
Oh,
that
me
I
too.
like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I throw in one other little?
Yeah, please.
One of the other things to keep in mind through this process is that the legislature caps us at two different numbers, okay? So it's the 250 per thousand or the 2,500 per FTE, whichever is lesser.
Less, right.
So in some of these instances, based upon our enrollment, if our enrollment continues to grow, the rate that we select would likely be the lesser rate. But if our enrollment, let's say, doesn't grow, then maybe we would end up having to switch over to the 2,500 per thousand. That's something that I do with the county when I certify our levy. You have to certify it on either end. So if our enrollment grows to, let's say, 2,500 students, or sorry, 3,500 students, we're not going that far backwards, by the end of 2024, we technically, our state cap for the 2,500 per student would put us at about 8.7 million. So that's something to keep in mind when we're looking at these numbers, if we're doing a graduated amount versus a stagnant amount.
What is that point where, is it that, you said 3,500 students?
Yeah, if we were at
That's,
3,500 students.
what,
we'd be
what's
at
the student, what's our
8.7.
FTE count to get, to revert back to per student versus, per thousand? Do you know?
It depends on a bunch of different factors that are levy based.
Would it be
because,
significant either way?
if we get to,
Which is another inequality the state.
correct.
Yes, it is.
And because that's something that, we're really close either way, like right now. If we were to, like right now, our approved levy for 2020 technically is 4.6 million. If we were to collect on the 2,500 per FTE, that would get us 5.2 million. And so we don't have a huge swing right there. We're talking less than $500,000, which for a school district is not a large swing. So if our enrollment continues to increase at the rate though that it has been increasing and the rate that it's forecasted to continue to increase, we won't necessarily deal with that issue. But if we do get to an enrollment lull and we don't see that large of an increase, then for temporary purposes, our levy could revert to a 2,500 per FTE levy instead of a point per thousand, like the 250 per thousand. So
But it tends to be smaller districts get at that 2,500 per
Right,
student.
I guess my question on that one is, I understand it year to year, but what, if we found in 2023, just to throw out a number, that we hit that threshold, is that going to be a significant reduction?
no.
No, it would
be a
probably-
swap in methodology.
Okay, so
Like-
at the very least, we'd be whole.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, like Ashley just said, in which year did you say it would be 8 million something?
If by
We hit
2024,
3,500.
Yeah, if we hit 3,500, we'd be at 8 million something at the 2,500 per student, and that's not, we're not anywhere close to that on
Yeah.
anything we're thinking about asking for. So,
Here's
Just-
new numbers.
New numbers.
So this is, so
Thank your assistant for getting those for us.
yeah, no problem. So this is graduated. So when you're looking at this, okay, this assumes a 5% inflationary factor. So if you go to like the 226, 236 line item and you follow straight across, that's how the resolution would be written. So it would start in that 2021 year, because technically that's our first year. And then you go across the board. So in 2021, let's say it was at 226, you'd have a 5.7 million, but in 2022 it would go up to a 6,019,000, then 6.3 million, then in the last year it would be 6.6. So that's how the graduated levy would work.
Oh, I see. So you've given us the prices per thousand,
and
and
then
you,
broke it down underneath if
Okay,
it was
gotcha.
right now, because we're at
Gotcha.
199.
Yeah, so the 2020
That 236.
But either way, I mean, it's still that rate drops it pretty, I mean, it's not as significant as going 42 cents, but it's still a drop.
it'll still drop a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
But it'll give us the capacity over the
Right.
4-year period that we don't have with a stagnant
Yeah.
levy.
Well,
And this is based
I'd
on, you
like to
said
amend my
5%.
motion.
That's a
I was gonna
5%
friendly
property
amend it. I was gonna amend it.
inflator.
I want to amend my own motion.
It makes me feel like there's breathing room
Yeah.
instead of,
If you'd like to
let's hold
amend-
our breath.
I'll accept your amendment to your
Okay.
motion.
Well, all right, I would
Motion
like,
was just- never mind.
I'd like to amend my motion to accept the graduated levy collections defined here at the 236 per thousand level. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay.
It's,
So the if I may clarify, the language in the resolution will be 236 per it'll be this 5 million
701.
in 2020, and then will
5.9.
you list the 5% with a 5% inflator, or will you list the different dollar
So
amount
it
for
will show
each year?
236 across all 4 of the bullet areas. Then, in the only part that's gonna change is the dollar value will change in each of the subsequent years. So for like in 2020, you're using those assessed values to collect for 2021. So it would say 236 per thousand to provide, and then in 2021, that would be $5,986,128. And then in the subsequent year, that would be 6,285,435, 6,599,706, and then 6,929,692.
So that would be what the resolution would say?
Correct.
Got it.
So, okay, I've amended my motion. Now I'd like to ask our levy chairman, who happens to be here tonight, Jean Johnson. Thank you for doing that.
And Dan.
And Dan King, co-chairman. What do you think?
236 is what we had discussed recommending, definitely. I agree with everyone on the board. I don't think having a stagnant level is in our best interest at all.
Okay.
Everything goes up.
Okay.
Having
Dan?
a little bit extra and if values actually do go up, you do collect more money. You have money for performing arts. Language in K-12, I love it. I love it.
Okay, great.
Being able to buy some more band instruments, love it.
Yeah.
Some of the things, in general, this is just my soapbox for a second since you asked me. No one likes to pay taxes, but that 10 cents per thousand is $40 to me, or $45 a year. I mean, everyone hates bad roads, everyone hates a bad police force, but they all take money. Good schools take money. I applaud the fact that you guys have gone along so long with the little money as you have, but I think we have brand new schools. I think the community's behind us.
Okay, good. What do you think, Dan?
Well, again, I concur, and I really think what Leanna said about, we really do have to very thoroughly and carefully explain why and communicate that out very well to the community, because although it's $40, I don't know if people are really doing the math, they're just thinking about increasing, property taxes. So I think our community really supports our schools. We've seen that over and over again with some of the fundraisers we've done, boosters and things like that, raising money for camp. The community really does want to support us. But I think it is really important that we communicate the why and what it's for. And I think as we proceed, we have the right people on board doing the work that will help us communicate that out very well.
I think a strong talking point on that is the rate is still what was previously authorized. The dollars amount has changed, but so has the environment of which we're operating as well. But having that, like I said, I mean, we compared to our neighbors, and it's all because of conservative budgeting over the last few years that we're in this position where we can still be, in my opinion, significantly under a cap and be able to make some huge investments. Or at least, maybe not huge, but very worthwhile. I mean, that's kind of the reward of being conservative, in my opinion. So, so you're
I'm a little concerned about having the amendment that way. I haven't studied this parliamentary procedure that well, but I think it would be cleaner if we just simply started over. Maybe withdraw your motion.
I withdraw my motion.
And start a whole new motion.
Yeah. Okay.
So then, with that, are you withdrawing your amendment, or are you withdrawing?
I'm withdrawing the amendment and the motion and everything else, except all that I said.
And
Sounds good to me.
You're the parliamentarian here. Is that legal?
Well, the movement was just
probably agree with it.
to approve this, and then we discussed.
Yeah.
There wasn't much of an amendment
Right.
to do because we had already said we need to discuss it, and then
Right.
we weren't approving anything at the moment. We were discussing
Yeah,
it.
except that she has a
that's it.
motion on the floor.
So if she
that we
withdraws
have
her
to deal
motion.
with before we
Yeah.
can do something else.
Right.
And it may be better if,
Okay, so we can vote on my withdrawal?
yeah.
Okay. I'd like to withdraw my motion, Mr. Chairman, President.
Okay.
And I call for the question on that.
Okay, all those in favor of accepting the withdrawal of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay,
Okay, now we can start over.
so do we want to stick with, or do we have to renumber that resolution? Or
No,
can we just
because
amend
it can be
Yes.
this
Okay,
number,
okay.
because you haven't approved it.
With that said, as that gets done, do you two have any comments about this? This affects you guys.
Well, as
You're
you
the
guys were
end user.
talking, I just started to figure out what it actually was. So,
Any questions or any
No, I don't think so.
Okay. This is kind of like property tax 101.
Yeah.
This is a great time in life to start paying attention to this because I didn't when I was your age. So it was, the older I got, the less my brain was working and I had to work harder. So, yeah.
Well, I think I could make a motion then.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the new amount?
I move that we accept resolution number 16G19 with the changes of taking the dollar figures, the $5 figures that are in there, and substituting them with the $5 figures that are on this sheet under the
Okay, do you wanna do it?
236 assessed value by 1,000.
Okay.
That
And
would
just
be it.
FYI, because we've changed it from what was published, what we have to do now is Ashley's making a copy with all of those crossed out and the new numbers written in, and if that's what you approve, then that's what you'll sign.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I call for the question.
Okay. All those in favor of approving, let me get the
Ashley, you
So
want to
I have
stand
it
right here? and-
16G-9 as verbalized by Director Whiteman with the 236 per thousand of assessed value to be collected at $5.7 million in the year 2020 with the 5% escalator from that point on. Signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Done.
Not exactly what we
Did you
did.
say 9 or 19?
He did say 9, and I tried to
And it
correct it
says
as
you're
19.
19.
Yeah,
I said 19.
Do it
didn't I?
again.
said 9.
I thought I heard
said 9?
Do over.
No, what we're,
Gee, I heard
You guys
19.
can just state the specific amount, sorry.
yeah,
off the
okay.
sheet.
That I just
He has
gave
to
you.
state this,
Or
he
did
does
you
have to
give him the
state
sheet? Yeah.
Yeah, the one off there off the 236 line.
Okay, well, we got it.
Starting with 2021.
Correct.
Starting in 2021.
it. So just read all the figures out.
2021.
For verbal record.
Okay.
right? Just.
Amend the motion.
There's
Well,
no
we've already voted
the
on it,
motion
so-
is still good. He just hasn't finished
Oh,
telling us
okay.
what we're voting on. So
Okay.
just start over.
Okay.
The motion number,
Motion number 16G19 with collection at 236 per thousand in 2021 of 5.9
It should say the whole thing.
Yeah.
986 $5,986,128.74 in 2021.
Just make it count.
Do I need to do every year?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
236 across the board.
$6,285,435.18 in 2022. $6,599,706.94 in 2023. And $6,929,692.29 in 2024.
I go back and say 2020 because you didn't do that one yet.
No,
That's already
No.
done.
Boom.
2020 is not part of it.
That's on
Okay,
the old
sorry.
levy.
All those in favor of that language signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed?
Okay.
Okay, can we be done with that? Good job, team.
Thank you.
All right.
No problem.
Thanks, Ashley.
Number 5, board development and linkage, superintendent update.
Okay, I'll get myself caught up now. Okay, so I'm gonna skip over the budget status update and give Ashley a moment and come back to that. And go to teaching and learning update with Assistant Superintendent Lisa Roberts. Yes.
I was asked to come back because you so kindly approved our literacy adoption K-5 at the end of last year. We purchased it and letting you know what's happening so far. Dana might have told you that we had a little bit of a rocky start. You told that about things not arriving when they were supposed to. But I have to hand it to all of our staff, and particularly our teaching staff, that they were so creative, so gracious, and they have been working so hard. Having a new curriculum means all new things to learn, different ways of doing things, and they have just been putting in so much time and effort to make sure that they are providing the best instruction for our kids. So some of the feedback that I've gotten so far, I can't give you any assessment data or anything yet. We have baseline, and I'll let you know as we go on what is happening in that way. But just people's perceptions The K2, we adopted Fontes and Pinnell Classroom, and what I'm hearing from our K2 teachers, some of them are here right now, a lot of work has gone into it, but they're finding that they're really enjoying a lot of text. There's a lot of authentic text that the kids are reading, and so the kids are enjoying what they're reading. They, the way that it's designed, at the beginning of the year, they've been doing a lot of interactive read-alouds with our youngest readers, and the kids are asking great questions and really getting involved in what they're doing. So seeing, even in this very first part of the year, that we're seeing some forward motion and that the kids are learning. In 3.5, we're using Pearson Ready Gen. And what I'm hearing from the 3.5 teachers, they just got done with their first unit, and one of the things they were looking forward to this is that the assessment, very rich assessment system, but they're also very much smarter balanced like. And it's a little bit, on the one hand, especially in 3rd grade, they're saying, whew, this is kind of early for a 3rd grader to be seeing these kinds of assessment. But on the other hand, they're saying, oh, it's kind of early for these kids to see this kind of assessment, and it gives us time to do something to help prepare them. And it's also just time so that they can go, okay, how can we vary our instructions so that the kids are going to be successful readers, writers, thinkers, speakers, and listeners. I'm also hearing that the kids are engaged with the texts. They're real books, versus it just being the big book with all the partial stories in it. And we had professional development by the publishers in both August for all teachers and then again in October. And I'm working right now with the principals and instructional coaches about how to continue on with the professional development to support staff as much as possible so that they are using the curriculum as it was designed.
What can go wrong?
It seemed to be like not a gradual down from that.
Well, did I just stop it?
You just stopped.
Well, I think wanted to comment. I'm glad to hear that they're actually having books, because I'm now seeing, you've probably been seeing it too, but the research showing how people, not just kids, but kids included as well as adults, do better with printed stuff as opposed to screen stuff. That's coming out a lot more now. It's not going to stop screen, but
Right.
I'm just glad to see that we still have some books. So, thanks.
Lots of them. Yeah, especially the Fontes and Pinnell came with hundreds and hundreds of books per grade level, and so, and like I think I told you before, kind of not much of a digital presence in our K2 curriculum, but increasing that digital presence. Still a lot of paper, hard copy books, but also starting to get that digital presence in as well for our kids.
That's good. It's important.
I want to thank you guys for supporting it and continuing to support our curriculum adoption cycles. Sometimes people forget there's a whole bunch of different subject areas that we have to keep on thinking about. So,
And all of it's been delivered now?
and the things that we ordered have been delivered, yes.
And the extras that you had to beat them down for?
We still are getting, we got some credit that we're able to, and which is kind of good because we're able to use some of it to outfit our transition kindergarten classrooms. And we're also, the one area we're still looking at is that, because we are making a transition between 2nd and 3rd grade, there is probably some work we're going to have to do to how do we make sure that our 3rd grade classrooms have materials for the kids who are really struggling, because we did switch from one series to another, and how are we providing some of our really high 2nd graders with materials that are appropriate for them. So right now, I'm letting people get used to their programs, so they're finding out what's working, what's not working, but we'll keep the dialogue open to make sure people have what they need.
All right.
What's next on the list to adopt?
6-12 English language arts.
Okay.
So we had our first meeting.
And that's all one?
Monday.
That's one grouping?
It's all of the English language arts teachers in middle school and high school. And again, they may not choose the same things between the two buildings, but they were, last time we did this, we did a K-8 adoption one year, and then we did 9, high school the next year.
Okay.
But because we couldn't afford to do K-8, and in 1 year we put middle school up with the high school. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa, thanks for being here, and you're welcome to head all the way home if you want to. All right, the next thing up on here, and then we'll go back up to the because now Ashley's gotten to breathe, to the regular financial reports. I did put the flow analytics forecast report in here for information tonight. This is something we'll be coming back to repeatedly as we kind of go over the next couple years or months, several months, and have to make some decisions about what's happening with growth in the district. Like I was telling Laura right before the meeting tonight, I had a meeting where I was talking with Ann earlier today, and Ann told me about a new development that was approved in Kitsap, in the part of Kitsap that's part of our community, which isn't showing up in this report. So we'll have to do the numbers and add that into the totals and apply the formula. And because that's a pretty high density development, earlier in the document, it talks about different formulas and which ones to apply, and we'll probably use the formula that's the 0.6 per household times to figure out how many kids, rather than the 0.3, which is for more low density housing. So we already know that we're going to need to adjust our numbers from here, but I think for now, if you kind of flip through the report, and the pages, Denise, up there so people can see them, past all the text back to figures 9, 10, and 11, which are the dot charts that show actual number of kids right now at a grade level, and then the projections that Flo did at a low, medium, and high level out through 2028. I think right now, if we had to look at our growth and the changes in developments that are being built, that we'd be at least at the high level that Flo has indicated there on the chart. So like for elementary school, if we look at right now, we have 908, or when they did this last spring, 985 kids at the elementary school level. That really 1329 in 2028 is probably not the highest it's going to be. It's probably, going to be more than that, but we could only do this report with, it's based starting with birth rates. They did a really strong analysis of kids who come and kids who leave over the course of 12 years, and what are the rates of kids we have. Yeah, those.
What's the actual, because it's hard to tell with the actual versus high.
The actual is this 2018 number.
Okay.
And then after that, it's low, medium, and high. Those
okay.
are all low flows numbers.
Okay.
But so they look at kids, what we know about kids, how many transfers in we have as a percentage of total enrollment, and has that been steady, or has that been, fluctuating over time? It's been pretty steady, although it's growing at a steady rate as well, which is contributing to the growth that's predicted in total numbers. And so they did an analysis for each grade band, elementary, middle, and high school. And what you'll note is that as a percentage of current enrollment, the place that we see the greatest growth potentially from flow, at least at the high end, is at the high school level. So there's still considerable growth, and we don't currently have the room for it at the elementary school level. With the adjustments, if this holds true at the middle school level, there will be some that will be necessary, but compared to high school and elementary school, they will be not very much. So I think it's very good, helpful information. It also is very clear what kinds of formulas we can apply as we hear about new developments with lots of houses getting approved, to add numbers to this so that we can make some good decisions. So this will be really helpful when we start considering how we best house the kids that we have coming in the district and what we do next. And when we look at, one of the things that we've talked about is we're going to have a plan for moving and rebuilding a new, bigger Belfair Elementary School. And so these numbers will be really important when we look at that and we start building a bond plan, and what else might we need to include in that bond, and what conversations do we need to get our community involved in, and what do we need to be able to share with our committee that we will have at that point. So I think it's really good. I wanted you to just kind of
get a look at it today and start thinking about questions you would ask. Because I don't think this is something we're all going to look at once and put aside. And I think you need time to digest what's in there probably. But
One of the things about, and I just through the newspaper articles that I've read lately, especially with the area around the airport, is there's a major employment development coming in. I mean, several hundred jobs, though they're pretty tight-lipped about who that is. Kitsap's not going to gather all those workers. It's closer to our core than the Kitsap Urban Core, as well as what might happen with the airport and it becoming a commercial hub. So all those things, I mean, I guess I wonder, I'm hopeful maybe this isn't irrelevant before too long.
and we probably will have to do some follow-up work
Yeah.
because they want to stay as accurate as possible. So when they're doing this research, they can only consider stuff that's already in the works or at least somewhere on somebody's, permit list or something. So there are things that we know that weren't included in there that would have to be updated, which is part of why, including some formulas and some explanations of how they do their work. But yeah, it's probably something that is really good based on current information, and we can apply the formulas to new construction for homes. But the impact of those businesses might mean we have to get an addendum and have them come and do a little extra work as businesses start to grow, because we could share all of those, and we did. Well, we heard this, and we know that this is happening, but they don't want to tell us the whole thing, and they're like, well, we can't put it in the report then, because we need to do data, so, yeah.
All right.
Okay. So then we will go back up to the budget status, because you've got quite a lot of budget status, because we've got fiscal year ending plus the regular stuff.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I'm gonna run through September and October super quickly. So if you guys have any specific questions after you guys have looked at the reports, let me know. September we have to report on, because I didn't provide you guys a dashboard last month, because all of our numbers were changing. So financial statements have been completed though, and so we actually know what we're looking at for September. When you guys looked through this, did you guys have any questions specifically regarding any of the revenues or expenses that you're seeing? September tends to be a higher expense month because of accounting adjustments. So you do prepaids in August, and then you have to reverse them and post them to September for those items that technically you expended over the course of the summer. So in the financial statements, those get booked as an asset, but we expense them out in September. So you see a large increase of expenditures through the month of September, but it was for items that were purchased for the entire school year. So when you're looking at September, expenditures do look high, but that wouldn't be our normal average monthly expenditures. For the month of September, did you guys have any questions specifically, or else I'm going to hit on October?
No.
Okay. So for the month of October, first thing, it looks, when you're looking at these reported, it looks like we're trending to hit the end of the year with a 6.5% ending fund balance. It's way too early to be able to actually state that. What this is using is past historical trends to sort of predict where we're going to be at. Well, we wrote the budget to add capacity back to our fund balance to help with that, with the state offset for the calculations for apportionment and when we're receiving those revenues. So we're trying to add back to fund balance. So when you're looking at that, just keep that in mind. You should start to see that percentage increase here as after the month of January, but as the months continue. Our total revenues collected to date, based upon where we were at with the budget, we're just under where we would technically be budgeted for the month of October. This has to, we still have some of our grants, both state and federal, that haven't been approved by the awarding agencies. It's super common, it happens every year. The state obviously gets backlogged with a lot of the grant requests. So once those get approved, and then I can go back and do retroactive grant claims, which will increase our revenues. And you'll see those jump from there. Expenditures for the month of October and projected year-to-date, our total expenditures actual year-to-date is currently sitting at 18.07%. Our projected year-to-date based upon past trends would put us at about 17.04%, but again, because of the booking of our prepaid expenses this year, a lot of that being curriculum and such, we see the increase there. Salaries and benefits, our projected year-to-date based upon budget would put us at about 17.16%. We're currently sitting at about 15.2%. We made some strategic moves late last fiscal year to sort of cover some gaps in the budget, and a lot of those had to do with salaries and benefits. So we're gonna see a gap there for at least a few months. And then our overall basic education actual year to date, we're about 2% over where we would be trending for this month. Do you guys have any questions on the expenditure side? Okay. So this month end, you see where that green triangle is over there on the right hand side? That's where we're aiming to be, okay? So that gap that you're seeing between that 2.2 million and that 2.8, I don't know if you recall, but when we did the budget, we wrote in $800,000 to add back to fund balance capacity. That's that gap that I'm going to be trying to close throughout this entire school year, okay? So we're working towards that. So as we progress and you see this trend, we hope that the square at the very end is getting closer to the triangle. So, and then we go into some more of the details for our general fund and where we are. Overall, for the month of October, we spent about $75,000 more than what we received in revenue. Again, a big piece of this has to do with our grant funding that's currently held up. Normally by mid-November to end of November, we start seeing all of those grants come through so that we can do those claims, and then that helps put money back in the bank for September through current. Do you guys have any questions regarding any of the expenditure detail? Okay. I went a little bit backwards this time. Let's go ahead and go to the budget status report for the month of October and look at our other funds and enrollment. So for the month of October, capital projects, we're currently down to about 2.1 million currently. So as you guys have seen with the stadium going up and such, we're actually finally cutting larger checks to them. So we are going to see that start to decline at a much more rapid rate. But I'm doing $1 million transfer at the end of this month from debt service fund over to capital projects for the portable and the roof. So we're going to see an increase there. Debt service is currently at 3.5 million. We had our property tax collection in the month of October, and I have about $2.5 million worth of payments to make out of that debt service fund here on December 1st. So you'll see that decrease significantly here within the next month. ASB, we're currently sitting at about $444,000. They've done a lot of fundraisers recently, so we've seen their revenues skyrocket. Transportation vehicle, obviously it went down a little bit, but we got some new buses. We purchased 2 small buses that got approved for purchase last year, with the caveat that I told them they couldn't deliver them until after September 1st because we get our depreciation money in August and we needed it to be in the new budget year. So we paid for those and we have those. But that $30,000 we did, we've seen a few checks come through from the insurance company for some of those bus accidents from the beginning of the year. And we did get approved to purchase a big bus. And so I'm timing the payment so that the payment's gonna go out at the exact same time we get the money from the insurance company, so we're not sitting on it, because as you can see with $30,000, I can't purchase a $180,000 bus. So we will be coming back here probably within the next 2 months, potentially 3 months, for a budget extension for the transportation vehicle fund, because we have to extend the budget so I can add the revenue so that we can purchase the bus that got totaled. Next, for enrollment, Enrollment, it declined about 1 FTE from October to November. That very well could be somebody was sick and doesn't show up that day. So overall, we're trending much higher than budgeted, and it's nice to see us in the 2300s. So what I'm tracking is our average to see where we are based upon the flow analytics and where we should be budgeting for next year. We're starting our budgeting process earlier this year. And so I think we're starting at next month? Mm-hmm. So, and that's the number that we're focusing on here with, along with the analytics from
2302.
Yeah, yeah. So, and that's just our average. So obviously each month that's going to change a tad bit, but as of right now, our average is 2,302 students. So.
What is our head count? Is that the
2333.
Oh, okay.
So our head count is actually higher than that. So all of this is actual FTE. So our November, so when you're seeing your average over there at 2302, it's because September's always lower because our running start students don't get counted. So your average is lower. But if you're looking at the course of an entire year, we like to look at averages because you start to see a decline towards the end of the year as well with early graduations and such. So if we budget based upon an average and not your highest point, then you're taking into account all those factors. So.
And one thing I think it's really important for those who may not be aware is when we budget off these orange bars, that's what we are funding off of. But yet when we have, I don't know, was that quick math, 60 more kids than 70 more kids than normal, that's students beyond what we're prepared to serve. So,
correct.
And we don't get that funding until January.
Yep.
So.
But we do get it.
But we do get it, but that's why some of those numbers are red on some of the other spreadsheets.
Yep. So they hold the money until January in order to do some calculations on their side and to ensure that the enrollment is what it actually is. And then they'll turn around and they do retro pays to us. Of course, they spread it out over the course of the rest of the year. But we do receive the additional payments, not only in our basic education side, but in any of our special populations that we are funded for as well. So, and that's something that we track on a monthly basis as well as far as each individual funding source that we're getting from the state and federal government, so.
And that's really one of the ways that she's able to get the box to the triangle.
Exactly, that is one of the ways that I'm trying to get that up there. So that was one of the things I was really hoping for. We were definitely hoping for additional student turnout because we were banking on that to get those two symbols together. So, do you guys have any questions regarding September or October? No. Okay. Do you just want me to go into financial statement presentation or? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, I'm actually pretty excited about how it ended up turning out after the nightmare of the financial year end.
And it was only a nightmare in the business office.
It was, you're right, It was only a nightmare in the business office because 66 cents took us 3 days to find. But we found that 66 cents, you guys, and I was able to submit out of the 36 million. So, but with that being said, so one of my goals throughout basically the latter part of last year into August was to try to ensure that our fund balance was going to be at 2.2 million because that's what we budgeted off of. So if it was less than that, then it throws your entire budget off for the entire year. We were within $12,000 of that amount. That is huge. Okay, so our ending fund balance, as far as the financial statements goes, was $2,188,132.82. That allows us to be able to stand on our budget that was created for this year. Of that amount, about 450,000 of it is assets, so non-spendable, non-liquid cash or investments. So it's our prepaid assets and inventory. But overall, it was exactly where I needed it to be in order for our budget to work out this year. So our revenues, we were I think it was like 1,800 if you do the math roughly, over our actual expenditures. But what puts us into the hole and has us eat into that fund balance is our transfers out, which is the payment, the non-voted debt payment that we have to transfer from general fund over to debt service fund to pay for the loan for the stadium. So that is what basically ate into the fund balance for this last year. So that's general fund. Then we do a revenue 2-year comparison. When I was putting together these numbers, this was actually really eye-opening. So you can look at your local tax. So those, for the most part, that's your property tax collection. So you can see where our rollback came from. That's a fairly significant amount of money for a district of our size to not see when it comes to just those property taxes. Your local non-tax, so your fees, your food service, all of those type of collections increased about $38,000 from 2017-18 to 18-19. And our biggest place where we saw that increase was your state apportionment, which went from about 16.3 to about 19.4.
And that's a function of McCleary.
Exactly, it is a function of McCleary, but those funds were very earmarked in what they were being given to us for. So even though you look at it and you say, okay, well, your local taxes only went back $600,000, but you increased $3 million in your state apportionment, there shouldn't be an issue. Those funds weren't given to us with a blank slate to do whatever we wanted with. So it complicates the situation. Our state special ed and transportation did increase. They actually did increase our transportation funding allocation across the state last year, which did help close the gap. It just hasn't completely closed the gap yet. But it's for districts like us where we sort of break the mold, and not all of the districts are made up in an area like we are. Therefore, we're underfunded where other districts are fully funded in transportation currently. And then our federal dollars, we're starting to see a fairly large increase in federal funding. Now, federal government doesn't seek us out to give us more money. So this is, I know, it would be nice. But this is all about our staff going out there, seeking out those opportunities, putting into work to apply for those grants and get additional funding. So as we were losing funding in certain areas, there's been a big push. And a lot of staff had to take on a lot of responsibility when it came to applying for additional grants and then following through with all the compliance and everything associated with receiving federal money. So we have gone up to about 2.3 million now. And if we're looking at 2019-20, we'll end up being closer to 2.6 million by the time this year is out, based upon additional grants we've already received. So that's been a big push in our office and district as a whole. So our non-high and our other like miscellaneous grants, you can see it increased a tad bit, and that's gonna be due to increased non-high participation in our school district. And we do receive some smaller dollar grants from other local public entities like the county, and that all gets grouped into that line item as well. So our total revenue went from about 28.8 million in 2017-18 to 33.5 million, so about a $5 million increase over the course of a year. That's a lot of extra work in that $5 million. So that's what we're seeing right there as far as the actual revenue comparison goes. So then when you look at that and you see how much money we actually received increase, you want to see, well, where did we spend it? Okay, so the first slide breaks it down by activity. So whether it's regular instruction, special ed, our voc ed program, comp ed, other instructional programs, our support and community services. So this is basically us operating the district, utilities, gas, those type of things. So then you have food service and transportation, and it breaks it down exactly how much that ends up costing us out of our total expenditures.
How much of this this pie chart is mandated services?
A very significant, I would say 95%.
Okay.
Yeah. Only because obviously transportation, although it's not mandated that we provide the transportation to our non-special ed students, if in our community we opted to not provide transportation to any of our other students, I don't think that would go over very well therefore, even though it's not a state mandate, I feel sort of like it's a community mandate, like they want buses to get their kids to school.
Right.
And then food service, and especially being CEP and all that, obviously providing food to the kids during the course of the day, we're gonna need to do that. Some of the other items, the enrichment type items that we're doing above and beyond what we're being funded for at the basic level, you will see these type of items, but they're commingled because some of it is regarding like, prepping for our early kindergarten program, or the community health center, those type of items. You're going to see them commingled with the rest of it, and although it's not mandated, it's all items to help enhance what we're providing to the community. So expenditures by object. This shows how much is being spent on certificated salaries versus classified salaries and benefits, and then our supplies and material purchases, our purchase services, which a very vast chunk of that is actually payroll related to our vendors who are providing us specialty services that we have a difficult time filling the positions for. And then travel, and then our capital outlay. One of the things that I've been focusing on over the last year is ensuring that when we have items that are really considered technically capital, so over a $5,000 threshold improvement to some type of fixed asset, that we're coding it as capital outlay so we can track how much that maintenance and repairs and everything is actually costing our district. So in past, you haven't necessarily seen it coded that way, so that amount was much less. So now going into the capital projects fund, we ended the year with just over 2.3 million, which is where you saw it pick up in September. Our capital projects fund is mainly, in the past, was funded with the Grapeview School District payments. Those are no longer existent anymore. They've paid their portion of the bond. And then state match and state and federal forest. State match we're done with. We have nothing else to claim. So right now it's going to be state and federal forest dollars that, and then transfer for capital projects. That's the only revenue we're going to see going in there. And then expenditures right now, obviously stadium project, the completion of all of our prior year projects, and then the softball field have started to come out of that. Debt service fund. Debt service fund, we're ending the year at 2.655 million. This is what's allowing us to do the rollback going into 2020. I need about 2.3-ish million each year to pay our debt. Our principal, interest, voted and non-voted debt payments come out of this. Even though our general fund technically pays for our non-voted debt, it only pays for our non-voted debt after it transfers it to the debt service fund. So it all comes out of here. Our transportation vehicle fund, I missed a comma. Our beginning fund balance was 152,000. We're ending the year at 173,839, and you can see that swiftly was no longer existent once we got the buses. ASB, they ended the year at 368,630, and within the first 2 months of school, they already added about $88,000 to their fund balance. So as they start the things like the dance and such, we'll start seeing that dwindle as well. So that's sort of a recap of the financial statements. I included the full financial statement package, which I don't know if you guys went through all, I think it was like 84, 90 pages of reading pleasure. But do you guys have any questions regarding financial statements or where we ended last year?
Yeah.
Okay.
This should be no surprise to you by now. With regards to debt service, the bond rollback in our weekly meeting, I asked you about it. Is there a legal way where we could not do that rollback and just take that amount and put it to the principal rather than having to go back and then re-raise? Is there any way around doing this rollback, this 1 year temporary?
I technically have all the authority regarding the debt service levy based upon what you guys approve during the budget. So the community approves the fact that when the bond came out, they approved the fact that they're going to support making of the payments through their property tax collection. So technically, the debt service levy is the only levy that basically comes across my desk, and I decide with input from other individuals, what we're gonna do with it. Are we gonna collect the full amount? Do we wanna roll it back? It doesn't require any special board action, it doesn't require anything like that. It's just based upon, sort of like a letter on letterhead that I send to the county telling them what we want to do with it. So, we roll back, so we're rolling back this year. So next year, when I look at it and I do our recalculations of everything based upon how much state forest comes in, all of that, I can break it out and say, okay, here's how much we have available currently for our payments. We receive this much state forest money, we can either keep the state forest money in here and either help make the payments, make an additional principal payment, pay off one of our energy loans, which are coming to an end here shortly within the next 2 years on one, and I think I only have 2 payments left on another one. That's all, we can discuss that, and there's a lot of leeway when it comes to that debt service levy. There's just not leeway in our general fund levy. So,
But you've already built, what I think what Craig might be asking,
Is for this
we've
year?
already built the budget with this, so.
yeah, so that's done.
That's done.
That's done, yeah, the rollback for the debt service levy is done, because once the board is adopted, or the budget is adopted, that budget document, that page, goes with that letter that I put together for the county, and that's what supports it.
Okay.
So, the only way that it could be changed is to do a resolution to change our budget. And it would be really last minute, because I have to have it submitted in 11 days. So I
It's
mean,
just a question, he's just asking a
Okay.
question. He
Yeah.
doesn't want
But,
to.
well, I think part of what you're thinking about is impact to our community.
It's
and
that next year when
Right.
that has that rate goes back up and people are surprised. That's my
Well, and that's
my
why I
assumption
think
is
we're
that
taking that next step
Yeah.
and meeting with bond counsel, because rates have improved
Mhm.
and our rating has improved. So we are able to look at a refinance of our bond to bring those costs down for the community. So we're meeting on Monday,
the 26th.
Tuesday, with bond counsel to get some information to bring to the board probably in December about what that could look like.
Okay.
And then with that being said, even with us doing that $1 million transfer and then refunding on the debt service levy and rolling back, I still left $800,000 in that fund, above and beyond what our payments are. That way we wouldn't bring it to zero, but it allows us the ability to do an additional rollback the following year if we wanted to.
Okay.
Because we rolled back 800,000, and I still left 800,000 in the fund, so we could do 2 years of an $800,000 rollback. So I mean, we do have some options there, especially because we don't know what our state forest collection will be either. And I do investments on that fund twice a month to collect the highest amount of interest as possible, and then we also have that going for us as well. So.
And with regards to ASB, that accounting has been improved, those systems have been improved, so we're not running into the issues of the past with regards to auditing.
Overall, we expect so.
There have been massive trainings. It's a weekly conversation.
Okay.
We are on top of it.
So,
Yep.
So I personally don't like those.
I understand that feeling.
So
Okay.
that's all I have.
Okay, perfect.
Anybody
Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So just briefly, because in her report, Ashley covered a lot of the capital projects questions that are outstanding. One thing that I know is very important for you all to know is where we are on the scoreboard, because as you can see, the stadium is getting pretty close
Looking
there.
good.
We're in the position of having to go out for bids again, and Joan has been meeting with potential bidders and collecting those. And so did we get the third bid today?
We've met with all 3 vendors. We're simply waiting for the official documents, the quote documents to come in.
And then we'll select.
Yep.
And we expect that will come in under the amount that would have to come to the board for approval. So when it does, we'll sign the documents and we'll get it going.
Okay.
So that's where we are.
I'm sorry it came to that, but
Yeah.
yeah.
We all are.
Yeah. So, yeah, so we're gonna move forward and we'll have a completed project. We also have bids, coming in for the work on the softball field and, making a new one. And a pretty, or an equitable field with the boys' sports. So we're really looking forward to having that on Centrix Field, soon. And then the work, we're continuing getting the work done on the portables at Deller to enhance the spaces we have for the early learning programs. So everything's good. All right.
All right. Community linkage and planning of the month. You have a linkage
For December,
document?
I have it for December, right?
Mhm.
So I'm thinking that what I'll do is put some information out about the levy, and I'll talk with you about that more.
Yeah, I'll work, like I talked about with the committee, on some
Yeah.
talking points that everybody can use now that we have dollar amounts and
Okay.
stuff, so we can all
Great-
have
great
a
idea.
uniform message.
Okay.
Assurance of organizational performance and policy review. Tonight we are monitoring report we are checking out is ER10 academic standards and practices, and the recommendation is that the board find the superintendent. I just want to get the language right. Finds the superintendent's performance to comply with ER10, and I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the monitoring report, the superintendent's fulfilling of that is written.
Okay, and discussion.
I do have a question. Well, first of all, your report is very complete, with tons of explanation under each one of those bullets, and I really appreciate that because this is an important area. But under the one bullet that talks about increasing instruction time for students whose achievement is below grade level standards in reading, writing, and math, you mentioned that at the high school level, we offer, we have applied the concept of acceleration of student learning throughout the day.
Yeah, so with training for our teachers in accelerating, in looking at what the holes are and the gaps are in kids' learning, and then targeting those specifically. So instead of looking at kids and saying, we are making up for what you don't know, we're figuring out how to help them get to where they need to be faster. Rather than remediating, we're accelerating kind of.
I
So
gotcha.
with training we've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years with staff about some strategies they can use to better address the needs of kids in their classrooms every day, in all the classrooms,
And that
rather
was-
than pulling out to go to a help center.
And that was my
kinds of
next
thing.
question,
Yeah.
do they do that in the classroom? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on ER10? All right. Hearing none. All those in favor of finding the superintendent to be in compliance with ER10 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. B, policy review, ER13 mandatory policies. This is the policy basically outlining the state, what the state says we have to do. So unless anybody has any.
We discussed that last.
You think one of us is gonna disagree with the
We're
state?
not changing it. We already approved. We're good.
Could happen.
We have a lot that we disagree with.
All right. Adjournment, good of the order. Start with the superintendent if you have anything.
No, I think we've had a lot from us tonight, so
Yeah.
we'll move on.
All right. Leanna?
I'm out.
Okay. Laura?
Nope.
John?
I'll pass.
Looking forward to the conference.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. Okay. I'll do this, the board self-assessment. We're satisfactory on general meeting behavior, and our principles were followed under governance principles review. Overall, we are satisfactory. Next board meeting will be here, December 19th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. in this boardroom. And then information, I believe all of us will be in Bellevue this week attending the Washington State School Directors Association conference. But no, hold on, board business will be conducted.
Correct.
Correct.
So,
Nothing to do with my colleagues on these at all, when we're there.
yeah. I'll take some comments from the public if anybody has anything. All right. With that said, we'll adjourn.